Hey guys, welcome to the very last video of our first unit of physics. In this video, you're going to learn how to solve problems using the guess method. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to use the guess method to solve word problems. And I'm going to go ahead and preface this video by letting you all know the guess method is something that is more useful for complicated problems than it is for the problems you will see in this video. However, it's important to be comfortable using this method now, so that way when you're faced with more complex problems later, you can solve them more easily because you already know all the steps you need to take. So, this video is about building good problem-solving habits. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and start by talking about what the guess method is. And it is not, let's start by talking about what it's not actually. And it is not guessing and checking. What it is it's an acronym for the following: given, unknown, equation, substitution, and solution. And these 5 things are your 5 steps for solving any word problem. So you're going to start by listing out your givens. So you're going to list out what you know. And you're not just going to list out a bunch of numbers. What I want you to do is I want you to give me the symbol. So that would be something like velocity, V for velocity, or T for time, or S for displacement, so on and so forth. I'd like you to give me the number that it's equal to and its units. So your givens will be in the form of, for example, velocity is equal to 7 meters per second. So that is the form that you're going to want all of your givens to take. Once you've listed out your givens, you are ready to write down your unknown. And that is going to be whatever variable you're trying to find. So we don't care about find it. So your unknown isn't just anything you don't know. It's specifically what the question is asking you to find. Next, you're going to go ahead and write down your equation. And it's going to be the equation that relates your givens and your unknown. Finally, once you have an equation, you are ready to do the last 2 steps, which are to substitute and solve. I wrote those out as 2 separate steps because that makes the acronym much nicer. However, it's really 1. So you're going to plug your numbers into the equation, and you're going to solve for your unknown. And that is the guess method. So now you're ready, now that you know what it is, you are ready to go ahead and to try implementing it out with our very first example. So in this problem, we have a bear running down the hallway at 4 meters per second. And one thing I like to do when I'm reading word problems, guys, is I like to highlight the numbers and the units that go with them, because I usually find that's very useful. Okay, so again, bear runs down the hallway, 4 meters per second. If it takes the bear 0.5 seconds to go past the door, how wide is the doorway? So let's go ahead and go through the guess method. And we're going to start by listing out our givens. So again, you can do this as a picture. I am in this situation not. I'm going to just go ahead and write down what I know. So the first thing I know is my 4 meters per second. And from the units here, that meters per second, I know that 4 meters per second represents my velocity. Or if it's easier for you, you can say that represents your speed. In this problem, it doesn't actually matter. In other problems, it will. So anyway, the bear has velocity of 4 meters per second, and it takes the bear 0.5 seconds to go past our doorway. So again, from the units here, I know that my 0.5 seconds is going to be my time. So units are a really good trick to figure out what your givens in the problem all represent. Now, I've listed out everything I know, and it's time for me to move on to the great unknown. And I can figure out what my unknown is by looking at the question part of the problem. So we are asked how wide the doorway is. And when you're measuring width, you're going to measure width in meters. So the other thing in this unit that we've measured in meters is, of course, our distance or our displacement. And in fact, the distance that bear travels in those 0.5 seconds will tell me how wide the doorway is. Because think about it, at 0 seconds, the bear is here. And at 0.5 seconds, the bear is here. So in that half second, the bear has traveled the width of our doorway. So his displacement is equal to the width of the doorway. So I have my givens, I have my unknown, and it's time to list out my equation. And for this unit, you really only have one equation. You have velocity is displacement over time. You also have speed is equal to distance over time. So we have velocity equals displacement over time. And I'll go ahead and put in my arrows. And I've got that my speed, which I'm going to go ahead and represent with an S without an arrow. And actually, you know what, that's confusing, isn't it, guys? I'll go to represent as a V without an arrow is equal to distance over time. So we've got velocity is displacement over time, and speed, what I'm going to say is velocity without a vector hat, is distance over time. So our equation is going to be that second one, and I'll go ahead and change my unknown to distance just to represent that. So V equals distance over time. And what I like to do is I like to often, when I can, isolate my unknown. And I can do that by multiplying each side by time to get distance by itself. So what that'll give me is that distance is equal to velocity, speed times time. Now I am ready to substitute and to solve. And I'm going to go ahead and combine those two steps, which, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is something I like to do. So my distance is equal to my speed, which is 4 meters per second, times my time, which is 0.5 seconds. Now, as you can see, I have kept my units in, and I do that because I think that for me, it is another way to check my answer. So my distance is going to equal 4 times 0.5, or 2. And I can go ahead and do the same thing with my units, right? So I have meters per second times seconds. So my seconds will cancel, leaving me with just meters. And that is my answer. My doorway is 0.5 meters wide. So, takeaways. First of all, the guess method is a problem-solving process that is helpful when solving physics problems. So guess is a problem-solving process. And one way to depict your givens is by drawing a labeled diagram. And this is not something I did in these problems, but it's something I want you to remember because it's something that will be very useful for you in the future. So there you have it, guys. You have learned how to solve word problems using the guess method. Go ahead, give it a try. Make sure you follow the method so that way you can practice doing it on easier problems before having to do it on some of the really complicated problems we'll get into later this year. Give it your best, good luck, and happy solving.